We are back with a new season of Scratching and Surviving here at the Sharp app. I'm Statsational, and we're going to get you to the finish line in your survivor pools. Coming up next. All right, guys. Scratching and surviving. That's what we try to do each and every week with our survivor pool little podcast that we've got going on here at the Sharp app. I'm Statsational, and I will be here week in, week out, giving you guys tips and advice on survivor pools. A lot of you will be coming back from previous years. I know we had a lot of winners last year. Rough year last year. It always seems to be a rough year in survivor. A lot of upsets. Last year, I think we lost 43% in most pools in week one. So we'll see if you guys can survive on to week two. You know, the toughest part about doing a show like this is as the weeks go on, we get fewer and fewer of you who are alive and fewer of you watch it. So if you could do me a favor, let's get this as big as we possibly can early in the season. Like this and subscribe to the channel. Guys, this is the Sharp app. I'm giving you survivor picks, but we've got a whole lot more inside the app. If you like any prop bets, if you play on prize picks, anything like that, we've got an amazing tool called the Proptimizer that you guys are going to want to check out inside the Sharp app. Just head over to sharp.app. Professional plays, models, tools. You get all sorts of content just like this. It's going to help you become a sharper, smarter, better. So let's not get too deep into that. Let's head over into what we are looking at for this week on Survivor Grid. Now, you guys who've been with me before know I like to go over Survivor Grid. Let's find it here. SurvivorGrid.com. I strongly suggest those of you in Survivor pools who may not be familiar with this website to go and check it out. SurvivorGrid.com. And what it's going to show you is the P percentage, W percentage. Now, the W percentage, we're gonna have a slightly different in the spreadsheet that I'm going to show you guys in a bit. They've got an EV, that's expected value, and that's going to be based on how many people are taking a team and the expected win percentage of that team. That win percentage is going to be based on the line. Okay, and you can get the lines inside of the Sharp app. We've got the lines from every sports book in your state. That P percentage, pick percentage, that's based on how many people in pools throughout like Yahoo and CBS, all these pick'em pools, survivor type of, or not pick'em, but survivor type pools. They are basically scraping from those websites and figuring out what the percentage is being allocated to each team. So this is a really important number that we're going to want to look at each and every week. And I have it sorted right now by EV. Let's just sort it by probability to win, and we'll see how that looks right now. So you can see if we just go over this, just looking at it, it's week one. Obviously, you all have all of your teams available. Make sure you guys read your rules. All right, this is before we even dive into that. Make sure you guys are reading your rules, that you know that you don't need 2 picks early on in week 1, or maybe week 11, 12, 13. You need to make multiple picks, or if you get below a certain threshold, you need to make multiple picks. Perhaps you're in a pool where you can rebuy and come back in. That's going to skew and change the way you want to make these plays, right? If you're in a rebuy pool, you're going to be a little bit more risky. You can take chances here because you have the ability to rebuy. So the way your pool is structured is going to change. I can't really speak to each and every one of you, but I'm going to give you an overall analysis on the week and each week that we go. And then down in the comments below, that's where you guys usually hit me up with your specific questions for your particular league. If you do leave a comment below, make sure you give me all the vital information. Tell me how many people are in the pool, how many entries you have, who you have left to pick. Things like that, any special rules that you may have in the pool. It's going to help me give you sound advice here. And you're not going to get this stuff from most people who are doing survivor pool type of content, whether it's on ESPN or here on YouTube. So you're going to get a little bit more in depth. We're going to go into game theory, and I think you guys are going to get something out of it. You're going to enjoy it. If you are, first of all, when you get in these pools, let me just start from the beginning. I like to have about 2 to 5% of the overall pool as my entry. So if I have 100, if there's a pool with 100 entries, I like to have between 2 and 5 entries for myself. Obviously, that's going to increase your chances of winning the pool just by sheer number of entries that you have, but also it gives you more opportunity to diversify and give yourself different lines. By lines, I mean the line of your team and how you progress throughout each week. So if you take Baltimore this week, obviously you can't take them in the future, but if you have multiple picks, you may not take all Baltimore, so that in the future you do have a chance to take Baltimore with some of those other picks, right? So that should make some sense to you guys. So firstly, understand your rules. Try and get as many picks in as you can that are possible. If they allow multiple picks, try to get that 2 to 5% range. That puts you in a pretty good number. And if you do have 5% of the pool, watching this video, I think we're going to be able to increase you up to maybe 7 or 8% chance of winning the pool, because you're going to have a lot of people in your pool who are making dumb plays. And by dumb plays, that means taking underdogs early in the pool. Never any reason to take an underdog. We can be contrarian without being crazy and stupid. And I'm going to show you guys that as the season goes on. You're going to hear me talk about equity. What is equity? Right now, day one of your pool, everyone's still alive. If there are 100 people in your pool and it costs $10 to get in, that's $1,000 in the pot. And it costs you $10 to have your one entry. That means you have $10 worth of equity. That's the same amount that you purchased the entry into your pool. If we lose 50% of the entries this week, but your entry remains alive, now there are only 50 people in your pool. There's still $1,000 in the pot. Your equity has now doubled. Your entry is now worth $20. So we're looking to increase our equity, and as we do, we're going to decrease our risk. As our equity goes down, if our equity ever drops significantly below that $10 number, then we are going to have to get riskier to try to catch up. So we're going to let other people take the more obvious pick, and we're going to have to go with a lesser pick that has a good chance to win, but most people aren't taking, to get us off of the same line that everyone else is taking and get us back in line, hopefully, if we get an upset. It's going to all make sense to you in the future. Week one, we don't have to get into too much of that detail because we're all starting from scratch here and we've all got equal equity. So let's go back to Survivor Grid. You can see Baltimore is the favorite this week by most people. They're a 10-point favorite. It's about an 80% win chance, right? Washington is the second highest favorite this week. And you can see Washington has about 18.6% of people are taking them right now in pools, followed by Kansas City as a 6.5-point favorite, Minnesota, and Seattle. Now, in these pools, obviously, you want to win, but the object of the pool is to survive and to get to the end. So people will not necessarily take the largest favorite each and every week because other people are going to be taking that team, or that's a team that they may want to use next week or 4 weeks from now, 5 weeks from now. A note on that: don't look too far out in the future, especially if you have one entry. So if you're in a small pool, one entry, what I want you to do is really play it chalky. Go ahead, take Baltimore. If you have 25 people in your pool, you've got one of the 25 entries, go ahead and take the chalkiest pick each week. Let other people take crazy picks, and then you continue to hopefully win with the 10-point favorite like Baltimore this week. And we'll see next week who we could take, who's going to be very chalky. Let other people drop out. That's going to increase your equity. Obviously, upsets happen. That's what makes this pool a lot of fun. But you're going to want to play it by the numbers. If we've got more people in the pool and you've got one entry, you've got a much less likely chance of winning. That's when you're going to start taking more chances. Let's open up my spreadsheet that I go over with you guys each and every week. All right, here is the sheet that I use just as a guide, and a lot of you guys seem to like it. So just a quick overview of the sheet. You're going to see the teams, obviously, the money line. Now I'm using the Sharp app to calculate a midpoint on the money line. That's going to be your most accurate projection as far as the probability of a team winning. And then I just have a simple calculation based on that money line to convert it. If you have a problem converting into a probability, just let me know down below in the comments. I'll help you out with that. Future value, this is taking all of the spreads, the future spreads that we're projecting now. Of course, this is going to change as teams get injuries or teams are better or worse than we imagine they are right now. And it's taking that as we see it right now. The lower the number, so Kansas City right now has the most future value, best team in the league. Baltimore, quite a bit of future value as well, which is why if you're in a larger pool, we may want to stay away from them and try to save them. But you see Washington, not a ton of future value, actually the least amount of future value of all the favorites here this week. And we'll get into that in a second. So that is how this sheet looks. This is the pick percentage based off of what you just saw over on Survivor Grid. And then if you have just one entry, it's going to be a little easier for you guys. But if you've got a lot of entries, and now on this sheet, I set it up as 100 entries in your pool. Let's say you've got 100 of 8,000. All right, it's not going to really change anything that you're seeing here. It just changes some of my stuff off screen. But you have 100 entries. This is going to give you an idea of maybe how you want to mix them up based on how much you want to weight the future value. So if we put this at 0 future value, you're going to see it's going to weight very heavily the Baltimore game. So essentially, if you had one pick, you're going to just take Baltimore if you don't care about future value, and you shouldn't, again, if you're in a smaller pool. But if we're in a larger pool, maybe we want to have a little bit more weight on future value. So if we're in a really, let's say we're in a medium-sized pool, maybe a couple hundred people, we want to weight this at like 50%, and we want to spread out our risk over like 4 teams. What this spreadsheet's going to tell you is Baltimore, Washington are almost going to be an equal split, and then to a lesser degree, maybe half of Washington and Baltimore, we're going to take Seattle and Minnesota based on future value of these teams. So you can see Seattle and Minnesota, not a ton of future value. It's skipping teams like Kansas City because we've got a lot of value later in the season on Kansas City. You don't have to hold to this exactly. You can mix it up. You want to take 5 teams, go ahead. Now that's where Kansas City is going to come into play. If you really have a lot of teams and you want to diversify more, then you see that you're going to have 7. You could go with 7 teams, and it's going to take all the top teams here: Baltimore, Washington, Kansas City, Seattle, Minnesota, and Jacksonville. Now, inevitably, the more teams you take, the more losses you are going to have, but you're going to be spreading it out. Obviously, other people in your pool are going to be losing as well. Now, if you took 28 teams, if you took 28 Baltimores and they lost, you're probably going to be right about on the market here according to Survivor Grid. So you're going to have about that. Any of these lines here, you're going to be right around the market, so you're not going to pick up anything on the market. But if Baltimore were to win and you got very narrow, let's say both Baltimore and Washington won, and we get a couple of these lesser teams lose, let's say Minnesota loses, you're going to lose 11% of the pool. That's going to increase your equity in the pool overall, but gives you less teams to take, less options to take in the future because you're narrow, right? A lot of information here, and of course, it gets confusing as the season goes on, but just understand the key point. The more entries you have, the larger the pool, the more I want you to diversify. So if we're in a really large pool, I'm going to be looking at a minimum 100%. This is what it looks like at 100% future value. So you can take these numbers maybe and incorporate them into your pool and adjust accordingly. But these are the teams the model likes, and at 100%, it's really going to discount Kansas City and save those for the future. If you want to take a little less risk, you think Kansas City is a good bet, and you want to adjust, you don't want as much yet. Let's say you had 100 picks, you don't want to take as many Minnesotas, you want to drop maybe 5 of them over to Kansas City, go ahead. You want to take all your 5 Atlantas and put them on Kansas City, go ahead. Obviously, it's your pool. You do how you see fit, but I just want to give you guys a good overview on how I look at it. So week 1, everything is available to us. Drop the comments down below. Again, if you're in a small pool, I want you on Baltimore for sure. That is going to be the safest play, and then hopefully you'll advance with that. I'm probably going to be rooting against Baltimore myself because I'm in a lot of larger pools. I've got a piece of some action on Circa, and I'm in another large pool with about 6,000 or 7,000 entries in that. I haven't broke it all down yet, but I'm going to be a little bit more diversified. Now, on the one that I've got about 6,000, 7,000 entries in, and I'm in a team there, they want to go a little bit more narrow this year. There's advantages and disadvantages to doing that. When I say narrow, that means when you look at my sheet, if I put this at 100% future value and we just take 3 teams, we're going to be taking Baltimore, Washington, and Minnesota. All right, so it's very narrow. We're only taking 3 teams. If I can hit all 3 of those games and a couple of the others lose, of course, we're in great shape. But we're not really going to spread it out as much as I have in the past. These guys want to try to take a shot at going narrow and hopefully gaining that equity early and then staying very conservative as we go. That's one way to do it. There's no really set way. Now, I like when you only have 1 or 2 entries, one thing I don't want to do, and especially in a small pool, is look too far in advance. One, you don't know how injuries are going to pan out. Teams that you think are good in week 1 won't be, and vice versa. So you want to be careful looking too far out. I only like to look maybe 2 or 3 weeks out into the future. So early in the year, you're not going to be tripped up too much. I don't like to plan out my entire season. But once we get down to week 3, 4, 5, that's when we'll start looking on Survivor Grid and we'll start seeing maybe there's some better options. We might want to save a team There's a toss-up between a couple of teams. One of them we might want to save because in 2 weeks, we're going to definitely need that team and we won't need the other. So future value, there's a lot that goes into it. There's future value on the whole, and then we want to look at immediate future value, and that we're going to start looking at a little closer as the season continues to go on. So guys, comment down below. We've got a Discord for you at the Sharp app, and you should definitely be downloading the Sharp app and then heading over to our Discord. I'll try to link down to that below. So any questions you have this week, good luck. Let's be in this as long as we possibly can. I love doing this for you guys. And like I said, as this weeks go on, we start losing views because of the fact that some people start getting eliminated. So if you can help me out early on with the likes and subscribing to this channel, I'd really appreciate it. Let your friends know, unless they're in your pool, and then you might not want to give them an advantage. So good luck, guys. We'll be back next week, and we'll get more and more in detail on this as we go. Week 1, not the most exciting of weeks, but I am excited for the NFL. Good luck, and we'll be back next week.